Welcome to the Redbird Report, your destination for the latest on the St. Louis Cardinals. Here are your hosts, BK and T-Bone.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got the Redbird Report, and we have some news to break down today, T-Bone.
Whoa, you mean the offseason's actually moving?
It turns out baseball is alive and well. There is action out in the streets, and Mackenzie Gore is the newest member of the Texas Rangers. He was traded. We are recording this today on Thursday. Mackenzie Gore was traded for not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 prospects from the Texas Rangers system. Now, 0 of them are top 100 prospects, not a one. So they went for quantity over quality, and this is not the first big starter that was traded this week. The other was Freddie Peralta, who was traded from the Milwaukee Brewers to the New York Mets. He was traded for 2 prospects, both of whom are a little higher on the quality side of things. One of them is a top 30 prospect in all of Major League Baseball, so the Mets go for quality, the Rangers go for quantity. This is not necessarily a pool of players that I would expect the Cardinals to be playing in. Like, they're not trading a starter, we don't think, from their rotation. They're also unlikely to add one of these high-level starters to their rotation with very limited control. So it doesn't necessarily impact them from that perspective. However, it does suggest that the market is at least starting to heat up again, which is good because the Cardinals still have some business to do this offseason, we think, by potentially trading Brendan Donovan.
Yeah, it certainly looks like everybody's trying to figure out what they can accomplish on the trade market before we get to February, before they really start to get in a panic and have to go back to the free agent pool before we get into spring training. And I think that Gore one, I'm surprising it wasn't a top 100 prospect. But I think that Peralta one, we talked a little bit about this today on the show, but I think you're looking at hopefully getting 2 top 100 prospects in return for Brendan Donovan, the guy that they could be at least exploring still. Because you look at Donovan, you're going to get him for 2 postseason runs, so you get 2 years of control. He's a versatile player. It's not like a guy that can only play one position. He can play second, third, could put him in the outfield if you need to. And he's got a really good hitter's tool. He's a good baseball player, as we've talked about in the past. He's the kind of guy that I look at as this market starts to heat up on the trade block that Heim's probably hoping to get 2 top 100 prospects for. Now, when I say that, I don't think it's going to be as high as what we saw the number 1 prospect go back in that Mets deal to Milwaukee and Freddie Peralta's trade. But I do think they are looking for a guy that's in the 50 to 60 range, 50, 65-ish range, and then looking for another prospect that's in that 85 to 100 range. I think that's the goal for the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't think they're going to be going for the quantity rather than quality. I think they're going for quality in a Brendan Donovan trade.
And I think they should. Agreed. I think that should be the goal, is to go out there and get the best prospects possible, regardless of if that means, we get a bunch of different shots at it. They've got the quantity of prospects. They've got a lot of guys in their system right now. What they're lacking is those high-end talent, the guys that have the potential to be a star at this level. And so that's what they should be aiming for, in my personal opinion. On the pitching market, you look at the free agency market, there's still a few guys that are of interest there. Now, you could go out and get a Framber Valdez if you're one of these teams that's looking at a starting pitcher. You could still go get Zach Gallen is out there. Even if you want to go to the mid-tier market, Lucas Giolito is still available as well. That is not really there on the free agent position player side of things. Eugenio Suarez is still unsigned. That's a little surprising to me, but he is 34. He's almost a pure power hitter. There's not a lot of defense there. Beyond him, I'm looking right now at the unsigned free agents, the best available non-first base DH types that are still out there. It's Harrison, and this is not my rankings. This is according to Fangraphs. I want to make that clear. Harrison Bader, Austin Hayes, 37-year-old Starling Marte, Max Kepler, who didn't he just get a suspension?
Yeah, he just got called for PED.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to sign anytime soon. IKF.
Ugh.
Miguel Andujar.
Yeah.
Kike Hernandez, who, let's be real, he's going to sign with the Dodgers. That's it, man. It is picked over right now. There's not much out there on the free agent market on the position player side of things. So there are no pivots really remaining for other teams This is just a matter of like any day it could happen. The Cardinals have the player, other teams have their needs. There's not really anywhere else they can go to get some sort of similar player to Brendan Donovan. You're either willing to meet the price or the Cardinals are going to keep him. And I think that was the case for teams like the Nationals with Mackenzie Gore, the Brewers with Freddie Peralta. It's just a matter of somebody finally upping the ante and doing what the Rangers did for Mackenzie Gore and what the Mets were finally willing to do for Freddie Peralta.
And I'm sure it's infuriating for Chaim Bloom because all these teams that we know are connected to Brendan Donovan, the Giants, the Seattle Mariners, maybe the Boston Red Sox, we'll see they are looking for a right-handed bat. But based on what you just read off there's not many choices outside maybe Andahar. He's probably infuriated because he knows the exact same thing that we're just talking about, right? Come on, make the call. We know you're desperate for a Brendan Donovan. Let's make this deal happen. I've been sitting on my hands all offseason waiting for this to occur, and no one's still bucking that trend. I think that's going to change. Like, we are getting to that point where it is getting super late in the offseason, and outside of Andahar, who you mentioned on that list, he's the only guy that there is some level of interest, I would think, right-handed bat. He had a pretty good year last year with the Cincinnati Reds, and I can't remember where he started the year at, but he was a very good player. And once he goes off the board, like everybody is then out, right? There's nobody else that you look at. If you're really
IKF, I guess, would be the closest thing.
If you're looking to upgrade your offense, he doesn't fit that bill, though, right? Like if you're looking to just upgrade you defensively, that's it. But Donovan's a guy that you're looking to really upgrade offensively, and these teams are going to want to have these answers before we get to spring training. Pitchers and catchers report in like 2 weeks before, or 2-3 weeks here. So we're really starting to get. We'll see who gets desperate to make this.
And if you're looking for a lefty bat, the best left-handed bat available is probably Luis Arraez. After that, if you're looking for somebody that can play something other than first base, it's Mike Tauchman, I guess. It's rough. There are no lefties out there right now, which makes sense. Every team needs that platoon bat to get in their lineup. It's Brendan Donovan. Donnie's the top guy right now. So if you're Chaim Bloom, you're right. It's frustrating, but also, man, I've got the piece that you all need. If you're not willing to meet my price, cool. I'll just sit on it. I'll wait. Because somebody eventually is going to be willing to meet that price. And I still think he will be traded. I still believe he's going to end up elsewhere. I think there was a reason that he wasn't at Winter Warmup, and that's not something that Brendan Donovan probably did lightly. He cares a lot about this fan base and the city. Him not going, I think, speaks to the situation that currently exists for him. And this gets back to our conversation that we will not only continue to have on the show throughout the offseason, but into the year and then probably for the next couple of years, which is, what's this next iteration of Cardinals baseball going to look at? We got a little bit of a glimpse into it based upon what we saw at Winter Warmup this past weekend. We saw some of the new faces. We talked to Chaim Bloom, Ollie Marmol. The DeWitts were made available as well. When you think about what they're building around, because most teams have some kind of an identity. Look at the division, right? The Milwaukee Brewers are built on pitching and defense. They build around athleticism on the position player side of things, and they build around pitching. You look at the Philadelphia Phillies, strikeout pitchers, big power in the lineup. That's the way that they would like to build. The Dodgers are about star power. Like these teams that are at the top of the National League right now, they'll have a very clear, this is how we want to build. Hell, even the Mets, I would say at this point, they're building more like what the Brewers are. Now with a bigger payroll and better players, but they're kind of building their identity in what David Stearns has been in the past. In the previous iteration of the Cardinals, pitch to contact pitching, defense, and like batter's eye, I would say. Swing decisions was something they really focused on the offensive side of things. What's the next version going to look like in your mind? Do we have a glimpse into that just yet?
I don't think we know yet, because I think year one of this rebuild was clearly tearing down, was the bring in the bulldozers, let's knock this thing to the ground, and then we'll kind of go from there. My gut feeling is it's going to be around pitching, because it's been the number one thing that they've been targeting in every trade, essentially. Where they got their upside arms this year in the offseason, what were they? They were pitching in the trades. It was Fitz, it was Dobbins. Those were kind of their focuses. Even in the Arenado deal, they took a swing on a 8th round pick of flyer at pitching. They've not really focused on position players. at this point of the offseason. Now, we'll see. Maybe that changes with the Brendan Donovan trade. I think what it is they're trying to come up with what Milwaukee has done, right? We'll see about the defense. I think they're probably going to do pitching and defense. But right now, I think it is just focused on pitching, trying to reinforce the minor leagues and just create this pitching pipeline that we can constantly rely on. That was the identity along with the pitch to contact for the Cardinals in the early 2000s. It was, oh, okay, well, one pitcher's gone. Guess what? We've got another pitcher ready to go. I think that's what their focus is, but I don't think we can clearly see it just yet because right now they don't have a ton of top-level prospects of JJ Weatherholt and Liam Doyle. And then Quinn Matthews has fallen outside the top 100, but he would be their second prospect there. They've got a couple of position players that have emerged in the top 100, but I think their focus is going to be on the pitching side. I don't think it's by accident that Chaim Bloom has been targeting pitching this offseason, and I think you're really going to start to see him push more towards that mold, especially I think when we get to see him take his first full draft as president of baseball operations this upcoming year.
Pitching is obvious. I think like big fastballs, if we're going to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of what kind of pitching should we be expecting, big fastballs has been a clear theme of the offseason, all the way down to the guy that they brought in as a free agent with Dustin May. His fastball isn't what it once was. There is some reason to believe that maybe he can add a little bit more velo to that this season as he's continuing to add on strength after that esophagus tear, which really seems to have had a significant impact on not only his life, but his major league career. So hopefully he's able to get something closer to what he once was. So big fastball, that's part of it. And then they seem to want like another plus pitch to go along with it. And like, of course, yeah, BK, they want two good pitches. I understand. The previous version of the Cardinals didn't really care about that. They just wanted you to be able to get ground balls.
Yeah, hit the strike zone, keep it low, and put maybe a little sink on it.
So this is going to be a little different where they seem to be focusing on big fastball, hoppy fastball. What plays off of that? Do you have some kind of like a big breaking ball, whether that be a slider, a sweeper, a big curve? Changeup was the theme of the winter warmup. That seems to be something they're really trying to implement into many of their starters' arsenals. They're into tunneling. They're into very much the new school approach to pitching. And so that to me appears to be the new identity, is like building through that lens. What is the position player side going to look like? I truly don't know. I don't think there's any way to know just yet because they haven't really done a ton on that side.
Yeah.
They've had basically one draft so far, and that was a lot of pitching. We haven't really seen them identify in trades just yet what that position player side of things is going to look like. They added Blaze Jordan, but he felt not in a huge deal. Yeah. And
they had that shortstop I can't remember his name, the shortstop that got in the Mets deal for Helsley.
Yeah.
But he still didn't have like tools that really stuck off of a page for you.
And he was a big upside guy. Like he was power.
And he's super young.
You're betting on power. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're looking at tools because Blaze Jordan, it was the hit or the power tool, right? Like once upon a time, he was supposed to be a big-time power prospect. Same thing for Baez, a big power prospect in his past. Maybe that's just going to be it, is you look at the pitching side of things, the tool is big fastball plus another pitch that they can bet on. Position player side of things, one tool they can really bet on and say, hey, if everything else comes together, at least he's got this carry trait that can get him to the majors, and hopefully he can win with that once he gets here. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's something they're going to continue to bet on. Like, hey, we've always got to bet on power. We're going to lean that. That's going to be the tiebreaker for us. I don't know. I don't know how we could know just yet. I guess you could look at the Red Sox. They've got a lot of athleticism on their team. Maybe that's something they're going to be honing in on. But right now, it does feel very much like an incomplete. And that makes sense. We're 6 months into this build so far.
Yeah, and I think the reason I said, like, we'll see what they get in the Donovan trade, because we know in the Seattle deal, there had been some reports there was a high-level outfield prospect that they have maybe had some interest in, or Seattle's at least willing to part with.
Laz Montez, I think, is...
And his tool is power. And that's why I think there's a chance in the Donovan trade we might get an idea of what they're going to target on the position player side, because you're right, they haven't added to it in the offseason. And the ones that they did at the trade deadline, those weren't any significant toolsy moves to where you could really focus in and say, aha, that's what they're building around. Most of those guys didn't come in as their top prospects. They were in their top 30, but everybody has a top 30, right? What you really want is a really good top 5 to top 10, and they're starting to build around that. And maybe part of the reason they didn't go that route, at least yet in the offseason, is they did get some good returns this past year in the position player side. Baez into the top 100 in Baseball America's top 100 prospects now. A guy that it finally clicked for. Rynel Rodriguez, another one that they're super excited for, that things are clicking for.
And you're talking about Joshua Baez, not Jesus Baez. Jesus Baez is the one they traded for. Joshua Baez is the outfielder that they selected, I think, in the second round a couple of years ago.
Yeah, thanks for correcting me. Yeah, Joshua Baez is one that's really finally starting to hit his stride, to where we talked about this, July of last year, maybe August of last year on the Redbird Report. We would talk about, man, what are the position players that are coming? If your current core didn't work, it was the theme of last year during the runway year. What are the position players that are coming for the Cardinals? It was Weatherholt, and that was about it. And it's still light. Don't get me wrong. It is still light. But at least they're now getting some reinforcements behind that of, okay, Baez could be a guy that may factor into the major leagues at some point. Rodriguez, the catching prospect, will potentially be one of those guys that they are extremely excited about. So maybe that's why their focus hasn't been on the position player side yet. And that's why we have the incomplete as to what tools they're going to be searching for.
The number one guy we're watching for on the prospect side of things this upcoming season is JJ Weatherholt. What can we expect out of him, and what does he represent for this Cardinals rebuild? Thought there was some interesting research done by Baseball America on what top 5 prospects ultimately become. We'll share some of that with you and give you a player comparison for JJ Weatherholt coming up next here on the Redbird Report. T-Bone, I saw Baseball America had some really interesting research that they did this week on what the outcome should be, what the expectation should be for top prospects in Major League Baseball. I think when you say top 100 prospect, the immediate thing, and I understand this, that comes to a fan's mind is, oh, well, those guys are the really good prospects. And yes, that's true. But not all top 100 prospects are created equally. There are some guys that get labeled top 100 prospect, but it's because they were 97th. And so is the difference between the 97th ranked prospect and the 123rd ranked prospect really all that great? The answer from this research in Baseball America is no, not really. But the gap between the 3rd ranked prospect and the 10th ranked prospect sometimes is massive. And so they looked into what should you expect? What are the likely outcomes from a top 3 prospect? And then guys that are ranked 4 to 10, guys that are ranked 11 to 25, 26 to 50, and then 51 to 100. And ultimately what they found is, man, anything from like 26 to 100, you're just hoping that they're a really good player. The odds of any of those becoming superstars is incredibly low. It happens, but that's the outlier more often than not. If you're a top 25 prospect and you're in that like 4 to 25 range, you're probably going to be a really good player. But again, odds of being a superstar, it's a little more limited, but better odds than if you were in that 51 to 100 range. Really where the stars come from is guys that are in that top 1 to 3 range. That's where you get Ronald Acuna Jr. You get Shohei Ohtani. Some of the top players in all of Major League Baseball, you can go through them and go to their baseball reference page. And if you click on the minors portion of it and you add that in, it will show you where they were ranked as prospects. Go back through and just look at some of your favorite players across Major League Baseball and see where they were ranked. It's not always the case. This is not foolproof. I mean, Aaron Judge was the 90th ranked prospect whenever he graduated from prospects list. It happens sometimes, but it's rare. Those are the outliers. And the reason that I bring this up is because Baseball America recently did an update with their prospect list. And JJ Weatherholt came in at number 4 overall. He's not just a top 100 prospect. He is an elite level prospect, the way that Jordan Walker once was. That didn't work. Oh. You hope this one goes a lot better for the Cardinals than the last elite level prospects did for them. So T-Bone, we were talking before the show and you brought up the fact that, hey, you look back at some of the biggest players in baseball right now. They had a huge tool that they could bet on. And it's like, man, you look at Shohei Ohtani, like, come on, he hits the ball as hard as anybody in baseball. You look at Aaron Judge, it's the same thing. Some of these other guys, like it's speed for Bobby Witt Jr. and Corbin Carroll. They've all got something that's just like the 20 to 80 scale. They're much closer to the 80 than they are the 20, and they're really high up there. You think about JJ Weatherholt, and this has always been, I wouldn't say my critique, but my question about him. what is it that you're talking about as that elite tool? What is the thing that's going to allow him to become a superstar more so than, Brendan Donovan, for example? And the answer is the hit tool. That appears to be what people would bet on. MLB Pipeline has him as a 65 grade hit tool on the 20 to 80 scale, which is really, really good. I mean, it's one of the best in all of minor league baseball. And so we tried to think to ourselves, who's the guy you could say had the hit tool as their main tool that went on to become a star, some level of star in Major League Baseball? The guy we came up with is Bo Bichette. Same position as JJ Weatherholt, reached the big leagues earlier. He was 21 years old when he reached the big leagues for the first time, and then his first real season was at the age of 22. And Bo Bichette has been a really good major leaguer throughout his entire time with the Blue Jays and now going over to the New York Mets. 4 times in his career, he's been a top 16 MVP finisher. He's had votes 4 times in his major league career. Basically, every season, he's somewhere in that 800 to 840 OPS range. That's kind of where he falls. He's about 20% above league average offensively. He's a solid defender. He's led the league in hits, not once, but twice in his major league career. This is a really good outcome, in my opinion. My question to you, and I asked this on Twitter as well, so if you want to get involved, you can go vote in the poll at BK Sports Talk. Would it be a good outcome for the Cardinals if JJ Weatherholt's first 7 years of his big league career mirror what we saw from Bo Bichette in his first 7 seasons in his big league career with the Toronto Blue Jays? What say you?
I think it would be a success for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I think it would be a good outcome for JJ Weatherholt because you're right. It was the same question it was a question I had. Who are these guys that are stars that have hit tool as their primary thing? And if you look at Bichette, I know goes under the radar. It was shocking to me that he has finished top 16 in AL MVP voting 4 times in his career because he always gets overshadowed by Vlad Guerrero Jr. up in Toronto. But if you have a guy that's able to put up these kind of numbers, he's able to hit for that average, he's got good pop in his bat, that is a star that the Cardinals have been lacking for a while that I would say is their best homegrown player on the position player side since probably Matt Carpenter. That would be a success for the Cardinals. Now, the question that I have is, can he be the only one? You probably need a Robin or a Batman to join him because I don't know that Bo Bichette would be viewed as the same kind of player if he was the only guy in Toronto. And that's what makes this build so critical. You've got to hit on JJ Weatherholt and him becoming this guy, which would be a win for St. Louis. But I think you almost need a second piece with him, right? That's not a Kyle Tucker that can lead a lineup, an Ohtani who could lead a lineup by himself if you had to. But overall, if you're just looking at him as an individual, yes, that would be a success for the Cardinals if he became Bo Bichette.
Where do you think Bo Bichette ranks among major league players in wins above replacement since 2020?
I would think lower than I'm expecting. 2020, I'll go, I don't know how to shoot the 50th. That'll be my guess.
Let's go ahead and take a look.
Oh, I thought you had the answer right in front of you.
No, I'm genuinely curious. I don't know.
Because I'm looking at his baseball reference page right now. And the reason that I feel somewhat vindicated saying this is he's only had 2 years with a WAR above 4. 5.9 in 2021 and 4.8 in 2023.
Those are good years.
Those are very good years, but the rest are in the
this is
solid
perfect.
Years.
Perfect stocking point.
What is it?
He is exactly in line with Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado since 2020. Almost the exact same.
And they needed reinforcements. Goldschmidt when he was by himself, and Arenado would have needed a reinforcement as well.
Here are the other players in a similar range in wins above replacement since 2020. Now, caveat here. Important disclaimer. Bo Bichette was hurt, was not good, barely played in 2024. Mm-hmm. He played half of the season, and he was a negative in wins above replacement. He was a below replacement level player 2 seasons ago. And that's noteworthy because if he had a normal season that year for him, he would have been in the top 20. He would have been closer to like Matt Olson, Cal Raleigh, Bryce Harper, if you just had him have a normal season that year. But he didn't. And so instead, he's with Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Gunnar Henderson, Corbin Carroll, Sean Murphy, Ian Happ, Nico Horner. That's the company he's keeping. I would say all of those are very good baseball players. Mm-hmm. Outside of Corbin Carroll, who also has not played as many games as the rest of these guys. Like Bo Bichette has played 700 games.
He's the same as Bichette, right? Was it last year or 2 years ago? He was awful for most of the season.
And he just hasn't been up this whole time. Yeah. Like he didn't debut until later on in this range. So this would be kind of against him in that way as well, because wins above replacement is not a rate stat. It's based upon accumulation over time. These other guys, though, like I would say a lot of them are the Robins. If they're your second best player, you feel really good about your build. If they are the best player on your roster, though, I don't know how you compete for a title. And that's kind of how I feel about JJ Weatherholt based upon all of the reports that we've seen. I think this guy could be a really good baseball player. I mean, really good. Like, could be basically just a 20% better version of Brendan Donovan. Yeah. He can play anywhere. He does anything. He's a little more athletic, so he adds more speed on the bases, maybe a little bit more pop. So he hits, instead of 15 home runs a year, it's 20 to 25. He has a little bit better of a hit tool. So instead of a 270 hitter, it's a 290 hitter. Like all of this stuff, just a slightly better version of Brendan Donovan, which is an awesome player to build around. It's not Aaron Judge. It's not Juan Soto. It's not Jose Ramirez. It's not Francisco Lindor. It's not these guys that you can, you know them by one name. It's not Judge. It's not Shohei. It's not Acuna. It's not Bobby. It's not all of these guys. And that's what the Cardinals, if he ends up in this outcome, which I think I would agree with you, if you have JJ Weatherholt become Bo Bichette, I'm happy. That's a win. That is a star, not a superstar, but a star level player, which is a good outcome for a top 5 prospect. It means you need to add another, though. It means that you're still missing that Batman to go with your Robin that you have developed. And that's where I struggle. Where's that coming from? Who is that guy? Is it Ivan Herrera? Can he be that player for you? Is it somebody they haven't drafted yet? Is it somebody they're going to acquire with some of the pieces they are right now adding to their system? I don't know. That's what I struggle with. And it's going to be the thing that ultimately Chaim Bloom is probably judged most upon, because they got to this place under John Mozeliak a lot, where they would have a piece that they trusted, and they would have a piece that you put into the lineup, and you'd say, all right, that's a pretty good cleanup hitter, or okay, that's a great leadoff hitter. You've got to have more than that, though, right? Like, you're going to go get the second piece. You're going to go get the third piece. And they just never were able to develop that cohesive lineup outside of basically 2022. I think he's going to be judged, Chaim Bloom will be, on whether or not he's capable of doing that.
And I'm glad you brought that up. And that's why it actually works out great that Goldie and Arenado are kind of in this range with Bo Bichette since 2020. A lot of the guys that we talk about that I think fans would say are disappointments or failures, if you will, from like what they've become at the big leagues, weren't necessarily was that the player failed, right? Like it's more of the organization failed the player. And what I mean by that is, you mentioned like some of those teams, like Harrison Bader, dude, that guy's put together a really good Major League Baseball career. He was a good player for the Cardinals. He had the 1 year where, he really struggled and had to go down to the minors. Outside of that, though, he became a very good player. Why do we not view him that way? Or why did Cardinals fans not really view him that way until he left? Because they had him hitting 5th where he wasn't supposed to be hitting, right? Bader's supposed to be the guy that hits 7th or 8th in your lineup and gives you Gold Glove caliber center field defense when he was in his prime. And that happens a lot for the Cardinals, right? Brendan Donovan should not be hitting 5th for the Cardinals. That's what he had to do this past year, right? Burleson probably should not be your 3-hole hitter. You know what he's going to have to do this year, or had to do last year? Had to be your 3-hole hitter. Why? Because you didn't have other answers for it. They constantly develop the really good piece. They constantly seem to get most players, I wouldn't say all, but they get most of their players to where if you were just to look at a baseball card and I said, if you could have a player that ended up becoming this, would it be a success? Like we're doing here with Weatherholt, with Bo Bichette. If he became Bo Bichette, would it be a success? Yes. But how does it not feel that way if we get to that point? It's because the Cardinals wouldn't find someone else to support him with.
I would say Colton Wong is another example of that. Colton Wong was a really good baseball player for the Cardinals. I don't think you could have asked for a whole lot more. He was, I think, a late first-round pick, and ultimately went on to be an above-average, legit Major League capable starter for 7 years here. And that's kind of what you hope for. That's a good outcome when you have these late first-round selections. Now, JJ will be judged differently because he was a top 5 to 10 overall selection, whereas these guys were, later first-round picks, and they were borderline top 100 prospects. JJ's a top 5 guy. I think Gorman, that's a disappointment. That is not as good as you were expecting based upon the place where you selected him, his tools, his prospect pedigree, all of that. That was a disappointment. Burleson, everything you could have asked for and then some. Already. He's already met that expectation.
I would put Herrera in that already.
Absolutely. I would say Brendan Donovan, he never really had top prospect billing, but if he was a top 100 prospect, he would have hit that criteria for me. If he was even like a mid 50s prospect or something like that, this is good enough. Like, this is a win for that level of prospect status. It's interesting with JJ because they've really had two prospects, I guess, really in the last decade that would reach this level. It probably was just Dylan Carlson and Jordan Walker on the position player side of things. Reyes was up there as well, but those are the two position players that had this kind of status, and both of them were disappointments for different reasons. Carlson, because of the injuries that ultimately hit him, and Walker just, it never worked at this level. He doesn't need to just be better than them. He's got to reach the star level status. Otherwise, it's a complete failure. And it's an indictment of the Cardinals organization. And it's also really high expectations for a guy that's going to have to come in here and be everything they were hoping for him to be in order for this build to work as quickly as they would like for it to.
And especially a town like St. Louis, where not everybody, but I would think a decent chunk of the fan base is on board with what the idea is being sold right now, right? Of, hey, okay, we had to tear it down. We are in a bit of a rebuild. I think some fans are not expecting them to be as bad as they're going to be, but at least they're open to it, right? We've talked about this before on the Redbird Report. That's not a thing that lasts 5 years of Heimblum's contract. I think after 2 years, best case scenario, there is going to be pressure of, okay, why isn't JJ Weatherholt enough for us to either push as an organization, or what happened? Why didn't he develop to become the star that he was labeled to be, the savior for the Cardinals franchise? That is a ton of pressure on him. And I don't think he's going to get as much time, just like Heimblum's not going to get as much time to try and get this thing turned around like many might be expecting.
There is one other former top 100 prospect that we have basically not even mentioned on the show today. He seems to be the forgotten man for the Cardinals. He's very much not forgotten inside of the organization. We'll talk about him and why he was the most discussed, most hyped player at the Cardinals Winter Warmup, coming up next here on the Redbird Report. Victor Scott was the name that we heard more than anybody else at Winter Warmup this year, T-Bone. It is not what I was expecting going in. I thought maybe we would get some Jordan Walker post-type sleeper status. I thought that would probably be the thing that they would sell us. Well, no, they did that last year. It didn't go well, so this time it's going to be somebody different. We also heard a lot of expectations and hopes for what Mason Wynn can be this season. A more well-rounded player is what they're hoping for.
But it wasn't as much as I was expecting, to be honest.
The guy we heard more about than anybody else when asked about, hey, who's the player that could surprise some people this year? It was Victor Scott II. And the reason that you heard most often was, hey, I think he's got his process down. I think he's starting to figure out who he is as a player, what he needs to do in order to have success at this level. And if that process pays off this year, the way that it did last year for Alec Burleson, when he started to understand how he could win at this level, there's another step for him offensively that will allow him to be the player that he was in the minor leagues when he became a top 100 prospect. Now, whether or not Cardinals fans want to buy into that, that's up to you. As I mentioned last year, Jordan Walker was the player that was being sold this way. We heard about all of the work that he was doing with Brant Brown behind the scenes, how he had built more confidence in himself. He thought his swing decisions were going to be better, all of these different things. Obviously, that did not happen. What gives me some level of hope for Victor Scott, T-Bone, is twofold. One, I think we've seen it in spurts in his time at the major league level. I think we've seen moments where it's like, okay, that's the player they were hoping for him to be. And two, he talked a lot about how he went back to West Virginia this offseason and had a couple of different tests done on him to see how he moves. There was some force plate testing. We talked about that whenever we had the Cardinals assistant general manager on the show with us a few months ago. Yeah. And he explained kind of what that process looks like. So if you want more information on that, go check out our podcast that we did with Rob Cerfolio. But he did that, and then he did one other thing, and it was basically a biomechanical overview on how his body moves. He's like, listen, I'm super athletic. I thought I was moving the right way, in a way that was super efficient for me. And he found out the answer was no, you're actually moving in a way that is not at all efficient for your body. And there are better ways to go about this. And so he's implemented that into his swing, and he thinks it's really going to help him at the plate. He also seems to have a better realization of what he is as a hitter and what he needs to do in order to have success at this level. He believes that could involve more bunting. And he says he's been working on that every day in the offseason because he knows he was terrible at that previously. I would agree with his assessment.
Me too.
And that should be something that he's good at because he's got the speed to turn those bunts into base hits depending on how the defense is playing him. If this works for him, if the swing adjustments allow him to just be a slightly below league average offensively, just hit 260, 250, you get on base enough because he's got a pretty good eye. You can get on base enough to where I don't worry about the slugging percentage. That's going to keep him below league average potentially. Dude, his speed is a difference maker. And he said his goal is to get 70 this year, 70 stolen bases this season. It's going to require him to get on base at a much higher clip. T-Bone, were you buying what the Cardinals were selling and what Victor Scott II was selling on his potential untapped potential that exists?
Yeah, I was hesitant to buy into it because I don't know if we saw it in enough spurts last year to make me really believe he can do it consistently. My hope is yes, because I think when we are talking about Victor Scott II, I'm glad you brought up kind of what you envision, or at least the idea of what would make it kind of a success from what he's talked about this offseason. I don't think it's like a 5%, 10% above league average guy. I think it is a guy that is 10% below league average. His WAR is carried by his defense like it was this past year where he had 2.2 WAR. And he gets on base at a better clip than 305 that allows him to get to that. If it's 70 stolen bases, honestly, if it's 45, I'd be even more happy with it. Just it's a bigger increase for him. And it puts more pressure on a team if you're able to do that, while you're also giving yourself Gold Glove level defense in center field. Can he maybe get there? It's possible. I think it is possible. I do think his eye is better than we give it credit for. I still don't know if he's going to end up being able to drive the baseball just enough to increase the average a little bit. And that's the thing for me, because to me, he is more of he goes about it differently because he's not a slap hitter like Luis Ariz, but that's more of what he looks like, right? He doesn't hit the ball extremely hard. We'll see if he's able to increase that like he did a little bit better in the minor leagues. I'm skeptical that we're able to see him be able to get to that, though. I just don't know. He looks overpowered at the plate when I see him play, and it's not like he is a 21-year-old playing in baseball. He's still young, but he's going to be 25 this season. I'm skeptical if we're able to see that from him.
You remember Victor Robles? Like the early career version of Victor Robles, not the one that last year was fighting other players down to the minor leagues.
Yeah, I remember the younger Robles.
In 2019, Victor Robles, it was his first real full season at the major league level. He hit 255, got on base 33% of the time, 10% below league average offensively, had 33 doubles, 17 homers, and 60 RBI.
I'm shocked he hit 17 homers.
He was really good that season. Had a 4-win season and then never became that player ever again. Yeah. That's what I think it looks like if Victor Scott has a good season this year. That's what the offensive profile is. Now, Robles only had 28 stolen bases that year. If Victor Scott gets on base 33% of the time, it will be higher than that. He will have more than 20 some odd stolen bases. Hell, he beat that last year, and last season he got on base at a
305 clip.
Yeah, he's going to have more than that in terms of his stolen base number. I think his on base percentage, if he hits 250, would be closer to like 340, 350, because he does have that really good batter's eye, and he takes his walks, and that's something that I give him a lot of credit for. Even when he was doing horribly at the plate, he was still relatively patient. So I think that's kind of the style of hitter that he could be. I don't think he necessarily has 17 home run power in the bat. Maybe, probably not. I would bet against it. But 250 hitter, 340 on base, a little bit of pop, like 10 home runs over the course of the season, maybe, but more doubles and triples than that. Gap to gap hitter. Man, that would get me really excited as a Cardinals fan. I'm also somebody like that player.
I would say, I think you just described the perfect BK player. If you can put him, I'm the guy building the like 40 home run hitter from the left side who hits like 260. BK's is the like 220, 330 on base, Gold Glove defense in the outfield, hits like triples every now and then.
You give me a Gold Glove center fielder that has the potential to hit 10 triples next season. Oh my gosh, where do I sign up, man? 70 stolen bases, 10 triples. This guy's standing on second or third every time he gets on base. It'd be amazing. The Cardinals have missed that kind of a player. And man, I wonder what that would do for the lineup. Like, I don't know if he'll ever have the on-base percentage that's necessary to be a leadoff hitter, like a true leadoff guy that you feel good about. But imagine if you're the opposing hitter, how much pressure that puts on you if he is getting on base 34% of the time. I mean, I could see how that would be something that could play, and especially given where they're at. You are no longer trying to maximize, or in the words of Ollie Marmol, optimize your lineup to win every day this year. That's not the goal. The goal is to get these guys into situations that they're going to be in when your team is ready to win again. And if you think Victor Scott is a future leadoff hitter, maybe, who knows, I'd give him some shots this year. Like against right-handed pitchers, I'd be totally cool if Victor Scott's your everyday leadoff hitter against them. And then against lefties, maybe it's Mason Wynn. If you want it to be stable every day, that's fine. Maybe you just go Mason Wynn every day. But I'd be cool with the idea of Victor Scott as your leadoff hitter against righties next year. I really would. And just let's find out what he's capable of. What can he do up there? And if you went like Victor Scott, probably Ivan Herrera 2, and then
Burley 3.
JJ Weatherholt's 3. Maybe Burley starts out the year 3. That's probably the better way to go about it.
Problem then is I don't know who you hit cleanup. I mean, again, this year you don't really care. Like, you could put Wynn cleanup, but he never will be that in his career. That's the problem. You don't have another.
You know what? It's probably Victor Scott 1, Wynn 2.
Burley 3, Herrera 4.
Burley 3, Herrera 4, JJ 5.
That makes sense.
That's probably the way you construct it.
Caught in a weird spot.
Yeah, and then my guess would be after that is Walker 6.
Pull names out of a hat at that point.
Gorman 7, Sajaci 8, and Newbar's in there somewhere. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Good luck at the bottom of the order.
I agree with your assessment, though, of like if you think he's got the ceiling that the Cardinals think, or what you're even saying there. I think there are going to be times where they should experiment this year with him at leadoff just to find out. I think what you're ultimately going to find out is, look, I'm skeptical he's able to increase the average enough. And then if he doesn't increase the average to what you're saying, like 240, 250, okay, well, something's going to have to rise if we're going to get that on base up. So if we're not able to hit 250 or 240, then when the walk percentage has to go even higher, which was pretty good last year. It was, I think, 61st percentile in baseball last year.
But that's not an outlier. He was that in his entire minor league career as well. That's in line with what he's been.
But if you don't increase the average, then the walks either have to go back up, which is another hard thing to ask for him to do because it's already pretty good. But you should experiment with it because it is something where this year, if you're trying to figure out where guys are going to be when you are winning again, he's the kind of guy that could put pressure on a team like Billy Hamilton used to do when he was with the Cincinnati Reds, right? So I think it is something that they should experiment. I just think he's ultimately going to settle in with, if he can at least increase the offense a little bit, he can remain in the big leagues, and he just settles in as a really good Gold Glove center fielder that on a contending team, you don't mind having an offensive deficiency because he does something at an elite level, and that is defense. And I think he ultimately ends up being more of the double leadoff type, right? I know some people don't believe in it. I truly do believe in it as the 9-hole hitter. You're not putting him in a situation where you really need him to get on base for the heart of the order. But if he does get on base, that's nice little cherry on top, because then it flips everything back up to the top with another high on base guy. And then you get to the heart of the order while you're also putting pressure on the pitcher with a speedster like him on base.
And you want those different skill sets. That's an important thing. A diversity of skill sets throughout your lineup, I think, is a really good way to build in 2026, unless you can be the Dodgers and then everybody has 5 tools. So,
yeah, I would just get the guys with all 5 tools there.
That's a good way to go about it as well, if you can do so. Unfortunately, basically 29 teams are playing a different game.
That's a shame.
Than the team out there in LA. Along with Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We do this every other week throughout the offseason, every week during the Cardinals baseball season. This is called the Redbird Report. If you're new to the show, you're just getting in on Cardinals offseason content, you're wondering, hey, when's Brendan Donovan going to be traded? We'll break it down whenever we get there. We do appreciate you joining along. You can always check us out if you're listening to this on the podcast page. Check us out on YouTube as well. They do a fantastic job with the video side of things here. Our guy Zane does that for us each and every episode here on the Redbird Report. So check us out, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. And if you could subscribe to the page, it'll be the easiest way for you to always see when the latest edition of the Redbird Report is posted. For T-Bone, for Zane, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys next time here on the Redbird Report.
Find every episode of the Redbird Report with Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson on YouTube or at 101ESPN.com.